Hi guys, welcome to my crafting channel. I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Project number 1 of my small and easy craft projects. These are some ceramic ornaments that you can decorate yourself, and my niece gifted these to me. Thank you, Arnie darling. I'm just having a look at the box and I think I might be able to save it. So I've taken the plastic off and I'll get on to this later. I'm going to start with some serviettes. They're in blue and white. This is a 2-ply napkin, so I'll remove the back ply. If it's a 3-ply napkin, make sure you take both extra plies off. I'm cutting my napkin into smaller pieces and I'm going to use that large rose part in the centre of my ornaments and create some uniformity. You'll notice that I've clipped the sides of those so that they curve around my project easier. I'm using a satin finish Mod Podge for this project. And I've noticed that once you get a second layer of this on, or second coat, it does get a shininess to it, so I want that for this project. If I'd had Mod Podge and a gloss finish, I would have used that. So now you'll see I'm centering my napkin roses. So I'm going to start to press down each of the flaps, and I'm going to try not to get too many wrinkles. So I'll start at the centre of each flap and work my way out. And then I'll ensure that each flap overlaps nicely. I've set my ornaments into this little plastic jar just because I find it easier to complete the first half doing it that way. Then when I flip it over, I put it into the Mod Podge lid. And because there's always a layer of Mod Podge in the lid that's wet, it won't rip any of my napkin, and I can continue on with my project without having to wait for the first half to dry. So now I'm just adding pieces of napkin as required to fill the rest of those gaps. If there's too much, I'm just clipping off the extra. And I'm just ever so slightly overlaying each piece so that I don't build up too many layers. Once I've covered the whole thing, I'll be able to hang these to dry. I think these would make a beautiful addition to those designer style Christmas trees that are done in the whites and silvers. I've decoupaged all the way up to the rim where the bauble hangs from, and I've made 2 more. Then I allowed them to dry. Then I'll go back and give them a really generous second coat of Mod Podge all over. While I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm going to open up the cardboard box all the way. And I'm just being really careful not to damage it. Then I'm simply just going to cover this in printer paper. It'll give my box a nice white finish, and I'm just using a glue stick to apply it, making sure that I get the glue stick all the way to the edges. Then I'll be using a plastic spatula to press out any air bubbles and to really set that down into the cardboard. While I was doing this, I found a little message from Arnie with a little love heart. How gorgeous is that? I'm sure she won't mind what I'm doing. She loves crafting with me. Wherever I'm joining 2 pieces together, I'm overlaying the paper just a little bit. And I'll just continue that process until I've covered that entire side of the box in paper. Now I'll set that aside to dry properly, and I'll take the insert which folds up inside the box and do the same thing. Once both pieces were dry, I'm able to trim around all of the edges. I'm not worried about the slots inside because the cardboard doesn't protrude through those. They just sit snugly inside. Then I can just reconstruct my box. Just by making this box a plain white, I think it's going to improve the presentation of my ornaments enormously. I'm going to add some hot glue to the gaps that existed between the folds, and this made the box much more rigid. Alright, now that that's ready to go, I'm just going to add some white tissue paper. I'll cut that into 3 pieces, about the right size, to just screw up and tuck inside each of those little gaps and make a little nest for each of my ornaments to sit in. Of course, you could make these in a Christmas theme decoupage, which I think would be beautiful also, but I thought I'd just love to try the blue and white out. And I think these make a gorgeous little gift. I would certainly love to receive these. What do you guys think? On to project number 2. This is a little dollar store crate that I picked up for probably 50 cents at a thrift store. And I've just got some 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just very lightly sanding the shine off the paint finish that was already on there. I'm going to change the colour of this. I'll remove my sanding dust with a cloth, and then I'm going to take an acrylic exterior gloss finish paint. It's a primary blue colour, and I want that shiny finish of the paint because I'm going to be creating a crackle effect, and I'm going to do it without using a crackle medium. I've been experimenting with this technique, and I've got the best results by using a glossy base colour in a bright colour and then using a chalk paint over top, and you'll see that shortly. This is house paint, and it takes about 24 hours to cure completely, but it's very dry to the touch after about 4 hours. So I'm just going to put a layer of PVA glue all over. I'm using PVA wood glue this time, but it works just fine with regular PVA glue, or it's the same as white glue. I'm using the colour Michelle in my homemade chalk paints, and I'm adding that when that glue had become half dry. The trick is really just to slop the paint on and not overwork it if you can help it. This is the effect you get when it's dried. Some nice crackle on there. But I'm going to also expose a little bit more blue by taking a really fine grit sandpaper, and I'm just rubbing the edges ever so gently so that I don't go through the blue paint and just expose a little bit of it. I've wiped off the sanding dust, and I'm just going to take 4 little wooden beads, and I'm going to hot glue those to the 4 corners of my little crate. You'll notice that I didn't paint the underneath of my crate, and that's so that I can add some PVA wood glue around these beads and then paint everything in so that the little feet are really secure on there. So a little fun fact, in one poll, apparently the New Zealand accent has been rated the 2nd sexiest accent in the world. Really lucky for me, because I hate listening to my voice on my audio. I'll clean up any mess I made with the wood glue, and I'll let that dry and paint it in with that white chalk paint. So I'd love to know if you agree with that poll at all, or whose accent you think's the sexiest. I think the South African accent's pretty sexy, and I think a Middle Eastern accent's pretty sexy too, in a dark and mysterious way. Oh, and the Irish accent. I had a male Irish voice on my navigation app for a while. Alright, so now my little crate's dry, I'm going to take some transfers, and these little cafe ones fit nicely on the ends. I've got 2 of them, so I'll just cut those out. And to apply these, you just peel them off the backing, lay them down on your project, and then take the plastic spatula that comes with them and rub all over the surface. Then I begin to lift one side, and I check as I'm going to make sure that the transfer has gone down properly. If it hasn't, I just lay the plastic back down and rub again until it does transfer correctly. I've just clipped a couple of the edges so that I could get the very edge of that transfer around the corner. That one transferred perfectly, so I'll just give it a good burnish by rubbing it down with the plastic that it came on. I'll apply a couple of little floral decorative designs to it. This one's a little bit big, so I'll just cut some of it off because nobody's going to know. I have 2 of these as well, so I'll apply them to both sides. Both the transfer and the chalk paint will now need to be sealed. So I have a clear wax, and I use a product called Feast & Watson Soft Wax, which is a furniture wax. And what's really exciting is that my Italian son, who is my daughter's partner, he's going to make me some clear wax, and he's going to use beeswax and linseed oil as a base. I'm not sure if there'll be any other ingredients, but I will let you know when I start using it. Once the wax is soaked in for 10 minutes, I'm buffing it off with a paper towel, and this will harden the paint and it'll give it a water resistance. Next, I'm going to dress this up with a little bit of wood shavings and make a little nest inside the box. And then I'm adding some decoupage eggs. And these were decoupaged the same way as I did with project number 1. This is so friggin' adorable. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Also, what do you think of that crackle technique? And would you like to see more of it? Now moving on to project number 3. I picked up this little candle stand for about $1 at the thrift store. It's a bit outdated, so I'm going to paint it in my homemade chalk paint colour Fran Green. It's got some great little detail there in the flowers at the front. If you were wondering, I've named my homemade chalk paint colours after some of my best supporters on YouTube. Big shout out to you guys, and guess what? I'm going to be offering memberships soon, so your support has helped me reach the first milestone on the partnership program on YouTube, which I've been working towards for a very long time, and I would not have got there without you guys. Thank you so much. I feel a bit like a YouTube creator now. So once that was dry, I gave this little candlestick holder a second coat of that Fran Green paint, and now I'm adding some white wax. This is a folk art product, and I'm applying it with a small brush so I can get in behind all those little details. Now I'm going to add a bit of clear wax to a paper towel, and this will just help me to remove some of that white wax. I really only want the white wax down in the detail. It tones down the colour really nicely, gives that protective layer, seals the chalk paint and gives it this lovely effect. I'm not putting a candle in this. What I'm going to put on here is a little bird's nest that I made in a previous video. Have a look on my channel if you want to see how I did that. Now I'm just going to add quite a lot of hot glue all the way around the rim. The glue's going to grab hold of that little brass piece where the taper candle would have sat, and it'll grip tightly to that nest on top too. I'll throw a few of my little handmade eggs in. And that's cute as a button. On to project number 4. This is another larger candle holder, and I paid $2 for it at the thrift store. I'm just going to again take a really fine grit sandpaper and just remove the shiny off the surface of this. My cat's eating his bickies in the background, so sorry about that noise. This is a metal candle holder, and I'm going to take that Fran Green colour and do the same thing to this candle holder that I did to the last one. I really love this homemade chalk paint colour, and because I'm going to run out of it fairly soon, I'm glad I kept a swatch colour of it so that I can make it again. Again, I'll finish this coat, give it a second coat, and then apply some white wax. Now my cat is scratching on the couch, which means he's wanting some pats, so I'll let you listen to some music while you watch this. Oh, it's more serious than that. Now he's trying to chew on my phone cord. Naughty boy, come here. Alright, he's busy aggressively playing with my hair tie now. Sorry about the noise. So now I'm going to add my favourite nest of the video that I made last week. And I'm going to add a whole lot of hot glue again and set that on top. I've got some more of those little homemade eggs. And I don't know how many eggs a bird can lay, but we'll put 6 in there anyway. And this one's done. And for the last project in this video, I'm taking a little drop cloth bag, and I bought the most beautiful hippie dress that came in this. It's from the most gorgeous little shop called Wildflower in Takaka. I've cut a square of coffee sack, and I'm going to alter this bag, but I need to disguise the colour of the graphic underneath. So sorry Wildflower, I am going to be wearing your beautiful dress to the Wearable Arts here in New Zealand in September. But apologies for painting over the name. I've taken some chalk paint in the colour Suda, which is the closest colour I had to that drop cloth colour. And then I'm just going to stipple the paint over so that it's a very fine layer and not too thick. I've put some cardboard underneath so that none of the paint goes through to the other side. Once I'm happy no more colour's going to show through, I'm going to let that dry. And I'm taking my coffee sack and I'm just removing extra strands so they have a little fringe along the edge. And I'm just going to make sure I've got nice straight edges, using the coffee sack weave as a guideline. Alright, next I'll be taking a stencil, and I'm going to use the border of the stencil just to have an outline around my sack. I'll secure it down in a couple of places with masking tape. I'm using a remnant black house paint that I got from a junkyard, and I'm taking a very hard bristled brush, offloading some of the paint and just using a downward stippling motion to apply the paint. You'll notice I'm doing a corner at a time, and I'm just feathering out towards the next corner so that I can marry this pattern up and make it the shape that I want it to be. So don't be afraid to use stencils on open weave fabrics like this, because this sacking material took the paint very well and I got a nice sharp image from it. I'll use another stencil in the middle with a garden French theme and use the same process to apply the stencil. Now I'll join the rest of the border. I was waiting for that to dry. I got these stencils from their Temu website, and I find that their prices are the best and they are perfectly functional stencils. Just be sure and wash them as soon as you finish using them. And to attach this to my bag, I'm just going to use a very fine bead of hot glue all the way around. I put a little bit extra on each of the corners just to make sure they don't lift and pull. I'll display a few florals in this, and I can now show you my finished projects. Well, thanks for letting me share my little tabletop projects with you today. I hope you were able to find some inspiration in there somewhere, and thank you so much for joining me. I really love hearing your comments, so drop me a line and let me know what you think. Bye for now from beautiful New Zealand.